The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the most beautiful place Ambassador Elena Vasquez had ever seen. Crystal towers reached toward a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. 17 different species sat in a circle of floating platforms, each one representing millions of years of civilization. Elena stood in the center, alone, holding the document that contained all of humanity's hopes. She was 62 years old. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. Behind her, through the massive windows, she could see the human delegation ship waiting. 3,000 people had come to witness humanity join the galactic community. "You may speak," said the Valanthi Archon. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. His voice carried the weight of a species that had traveled between stars when humans still lived in caves. Elena cleared her throat. "Honored members of the Ascended Conclave, humanity comes before you today, not as conquerors or beggars. We come as neighbors. For 300 years, we have reached toward the stars. We have built colonies on distant worlds. We have proven that we can survive in the darkness. Between suns." She paused and looked around the circle. Some faces showed curiosity. Most showed boredom. A few showed something worse, contempt. "We ask only for a chance," Elena continued. "A chance to learn from your wisdom. A chance to contribute to the galactic community. A chance to prove that humanity has something to offer." The Krithani Empress laughed. It was not a kind sound. She was covered in scales of deep purple, and her eyes were like pools of black oil. "Something to offer? Your species has existed for barely a heartbeat. You have fought 2 world wars. You nearly destroyed your own planet. What could you possibly offer us?" "Ah." Elena felt her heart sink, but she kept her voice steady. "We offer our determination, our creativity, our refusal to give up, even when everything seems impossible." "Determination?" The Valanthi Archon shook his head slowly. "We have seen 1,000 species with determination. Most of them are now extinct. Determination without wisdom is simply a faster path to destruction." The debate went on for hours. Elena answered every question. She showed them humanity's art, music, and scientific achievements. She spoke of human kindness, of people who risked their lives to save strangers. She spoke of human dreams. None of it mattered. When the vote came, it was unanimous. All 17 species voted against humanity's membership. The Archon delivered the verdict with something that might have been pity in his ancient eyes. "Humanity is not ready. You are too young, too violent, too unpredictable. Perhaps in a few thousand years, you will mature enough to join us. Until then, you are granted territory in the Outer Rim. The Kepler Expanse will be your home. Do not leave it without permission." Elena felt like she had been punched in the stomach. The Outer Rim was called the Graveyard. It was where dying species went to fade away. The worlds there were harsh and empty. Resources were scarce. Dozens of species had been sent there before, and none had survived for long. "This is a death sentence," she whispered. "This is a gift," the Archon replied. "Be grateful. We did not simply destroy your colonies for trespassing in Council space. Go to the Rim. Survive if you can. Prove us wrong if you are able. But do not return until you are called." Elena walked back to the delegation ship in silence. 3,000 humans watched her come aboard. They had seen the broadcast. They already knew. Admiral Marcus Stone was waiting for her at the airlock. He was a hard man, with gray hair and scars from battles fought in the early days of human expansion. He had never trusted the Council. "What did they say?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "They said we were not worthy. They said we were clever animals, playing with things we do not understand." Stone looked out the window at the beautiful Council capital. Millions of aliens went about their lives below, never giving a single thought to the humans who had just been condemned to exile. "Then we will build something that does not need their approval." The journey to the Outer Rim took 6 months. Behind them, humanity packed up its colonies from the territories the Council had allowed them to use. 12 billion people gathered their belongings and headed into the darkness. Old people who had spent their whole lives building homes on distant worlds had to leave everything behind. Children asked their parents why they had to go, and the parents had no good answers. The galaxy watched them go and quickly forgot they existed. The Council turned its attention to more important matters: trade agreements, border disputes, the endless politics of species that had been traveling between stars for millions of years. Elena stood on the bridge of the lead ship as they entered the Kepler expanse. The stars here were dim and scattered. The planets were cold and barren. This was supposed to be their grave. "What do we do now?" asked her aide, a young man named David, who had just graduated from the diplomatic academy. Elena thought about her answer for a long time. She thought about all the humans who had faced impossible situations throughout history: the survivors of plagues, the builders of civilizations, the dreamers who had looked up at the stars and refused to believe they were unreachable. "Now," she said, "we show them what humanity does when it has nothing left to lose. We survive. We grow. We build. And one day, we make them regret ever looking down on us." Behind her, Admiral Stone smiled grimly. In his pocket was a data chip containing the first plans for something called Project Prometheus. The Council thought they had buried humanity in the darkness. They had no idea what grows in the dark. 50 years passed in silence. The Galactic Council sometimes talked about the humans during their meetings. They spoke of them the way people speak of the dead, with a mixture of pity and relief. Traders who visited the Outer Rim brought back stories of small settlements clinging to frozen rocks. They described humans living in metal boxes, breathing recycled air, fighting to survive each day. The Council congratulated itself on handling the human problem so well. The clever beasts would die out eventually, and the galaxy would be better for it. They could not have been more wrong. Deep inside an asteroid called Station Prometheus, Director Yuki Tanaka watched the numbers on her screen change. Around her, a team of scientists held their breath. They had been working on this project for 20 years. They had failed thousands of times. But today, something was different. "Power levels stable," reported her assistant. "Spatial distortion holding at 97%. Yuki nodded slowly. In front of them, a ring of metal and crystal began to glow with soft blue light. The air itself seemed to bend and twist inside the ring. And then, suddenly, there was a hole in space. Through it, she could see another laboratory, 3 light-years away. "We did it," someone whispered. Yuki allowed herself a small smile. The Council species had spent 10,000 years trying to create stable wormhole technology. Their greatest minds had called it impossible. Humanity had done it in 43 years, using salvaged parts and desperate creativity. "Begin production immediately," Yuki ordered. "I want a network of gates across the entire expanse within 5 years." This was just one of many breakthroughs happening across human space. On a moon orbiting a gas giant, Dr. Samuel Okonkwo completed the first neural lattice computer. It could think faster than any machine ever built. On a space station hidden in an asteroid field, Commander Ingrid Holm perfected the Ghost Drive, an engine that left no energy signature, making ships invisible to sensors. The humans had learned something important in their years of exile. The Council species had grown comfortable. They had stopped innovating long ago. Why create new things when the old things worked well enough? But humanity had no old things to rely on. They had to invent everything from nothing, and they were very, very good at it. But the most important change was not technological. It was political. Captain James Reeves guided his ship through a field of floating rocks toward a hidden station. He was here to meet with creatures that the Council had declared enemies of all civilized life, the Chitin Collective. The Chitin were insects. They stood on 6 legs and communicated through clicks and chemical signals. The Council had tried to exterminate them 3 times. Each time, the Chitin had survived by hiding in places the Council did not want to go. Places like the Outer Rim, The Cheating Queen was enormous, bigger than Reeves' entire ship. But her voice, translated through a machine, was gentle. "You come to us with empty hands," she said. "The Council sends only death. Why should we trust you?" Reeves spread his arms wide. "Because we are the same." The Council looked at us and saw creatures unworthy of respect. They threw us into the darkness and expected us to die. But here we are, both of us, still alive, still fighting. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she made a sound that might have been laughter. "You humans are strange. You are small and soft and weak, but there is fire inside you. Very well. Let us see what we can build together." Similar meetings happened across the Outer Rim. Humanity reached out to the Moravec, silicon-based beings who lived inside computers. They allied with the Dr. Akan clans, warriors who had been exiled for refusing to bow to the Council. They found the remnants of a dozen other species that the galaxy had forgotten. Alone, each group was weak. Together, they called themselves the Forgotten Alliance. President Alexander Volkov stood before a crowd of millions. Behind him, the flag of the United Human Territories flew beside the banners of their allies. The camera broadcast his image to every human settlement in the expanse. 50 years ago, the Council told us we were nothing, he said. They said we would die in the darkness. They were wrong. He gestured at the fleet visible through the massive windows behind him. Hundreds of ships hung in space, ships built in human shipyards, crewed by human sailors and their alien allies. They called this place our grave. Instead, we made it our forge. The galaxy forgot us. Good. Let them forget. While they looked away, we built something they never imagined possible. While they laughed at us, we grew strong. His voice rose with passion. We did not ask to be exiled. We did not ask to be forgotten. But we took what they gave us, and we made it our own. Every cold moon, every barren rock, every empty corner of this forsaken space, it belongs to us now. We earned it with our blood, and our sweat, and our tears. The crowd roared its approval. Soon, Volkov continued, the galaxy will remember that we exist. Soon, they will look toward the Outer Rim and see something that makes them afraid. Not because we are cruel, not because we seek revenge, but because we are proof that their power is not absolute. We are proof that the forgotten can rise. We are proof that humanity never stays buried. In the shadows of the Outer Rim, humanity waited. They had built their weapons. They had gathered their allies. They had turned their exile into an empire. Now they were ready to remind the galaxy that they existed. The Council had made a terrible mistake when they cast humanity aside. They had given them the one thing more dangerous than any weapon. They had given them a reason to prove themselves. Captain Thelvora of the Volanthi trade fleet was bored. Her convoy of 12 ships was taking the long route around Council space, passing near the edge of the Outer Rim. It was safe, but dull. Nothing interesting ever happened out here. Her sensor officer made a confused sound. "Captain, I am detecting something strange. There appear to be ships ahead." Thelvora frowned. "Ships? Out here? Probably just some human scavengers. Ignore them, Captain. There are a lot of ships." Before Thelvora could respond, space itself seemed to change. Dozens of vessels appeared out of nowhere, surrounding her convoy completely. They had no energy signatures one moment, and then suddenly they were everywhere. It was impossible. It was terrifying. The largest ship she had ever seen moved to block her path. It was massive and brutal, covered in armor plates and weapon systems. Along its hull, she could read words carved into the metal names of worlds she did not recognize. A human face appeared on her view screen. The man had dark eyes and gray hair, and he wore a uniform she had never seen before. His expression was calm and cold. "You are in United Territories space," he said. "I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Human Defense Force. State your business." Thelvora's mouth opened and closed several times. United Territories? There are no United Territories. This space is unclaimed. The humans are right in front of you with 60 warships, Admiral Chen interrupted. This space belongs to us. 47 star systems. 200 billion citizens, human and allied. We are no longer the scattered refugees you remember. Turn your convoy around and deliver a message to the council. What message? Chen Wei smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell them we are back. Tell them we are not asking for membership anymore. We are informing them that we exist. And tell them that if they want to discuss the new borders of the galaxy, they know where to find us. The Valanthi convoy fled at maximum speed. Within days, the news spread across the galaxy like fire. The council did not believe it at first. Surely this was some kind of trick. Surely the humans could not have built an empire in secret. But then, more reports came in. Merchant ships encountered human patrols at dozens of locations. Scouts sent to investigate never returned. And then came the most terrifying news of all. The quantum crystals that powered Council faster than light drives came from only one place in the galaxy, the Nexus fields near the center of the Outer Rim. For 50 years, Council mining ships had harvested these crystals without resistance. Now, when they arrived, they found human warships waiting. These resources belong to the United Territories, the human commanders announced. If you want crystals, you will negotiate for them. Like equals. The Valanthi Archon called an emergency meeting of the council. His silver face was darker than anyone had ever seen it. This is unacceptable, he declared. These creatures were given a chance to die with dignity. Instead, they have stolen technology and made alliances with criminals and monsters. They must be brought under control. The Krathani Empress nodded eagerly. Send a fleet. Remind them of their place. They are still just humans. How dangerous can they really be? But some voices urged caution. The Moravec had shared their wisdom with humanity. The Chitin Collective stood with them. Even the feared Dr. Akan warriors had joined their cause. This was not the scattered group of refugees the council remembered. We should talk to them first, suggested the ambassador from a minor council species. Perhaps we can reach an agreement. 1. Agreement? The Empress laughed cruelly. We do not make agreements with vermin. We exterminate them. The council voted to send a message to humanity. It was not an invitation to negotiate. It was a demand for complete surrender. The humans must give up their wormhole technology. They must dissolve their alliances. They must accept council oversight of all their activities. If they refused, there would be war. President Volkov received the message in his office on Nova Terra, the new human capital world. He read it slowly, then passed it to Admiral Stone, who had grown old, but no less fierce in the decades since humanity's exile. They want us to surrender everything we built, Volkov said quietly. Stone crushed the paper in his fist. After 50 years of suffering, after watching our people die trying to survive in the darkness they threw us into, now they want us to kneel. Volkov turned to face the window. Outside, the city of New Hope stretched toward the horizon. Millions of humans lived there. Humans who had been born in exile, who had never known any home except the Outer Rim. They had built this world from nothing. They had earned every stone, every tree, every breath of air. Draft a response, Volkov said. Tell them that we will not surrender. Tell them that we will not kneel. Tell them that we remember every insult, every rejection, every life lost, because they decided we were not worthy of help. He paused, his voice growing hard. Tell them that if they want war, they will find us ready. We did not survive 50 years in the graveyard to bow to those who put us there. We are humanity. We are the Forgotten Alliance, and we will never submit to tyrants again. The response was broadcast across the galaxy. On human worlds, people cheered. On council worlds, leaders went pale with rage and fear. The war everyone had thought impossible was about to begin. But humanity was no longer afraid. They had spent 50 years preparing for this moment. They had built their weapons. They had trained their soldiers. They had learned how to fight against enemies who thought themselves superior. Now it was time to show the galaxy what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The Council fleet was the largest military force ever assembled. 300 warships from 12 different species gathered at the border of the Outer Rim. Their commanders were confident. This would not be a war. It would be an execution. Admiral Velthos of the Valanthi led the attack. His flagship was a mountain of metal and weapons, crewed by thousands of soldiers who had never known defeat. He gave the order to jump, and the entire fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. They emerged in the Kepler system, ready for battle. They found nothing. The planets were empty. The stations were abandoned. There was no one to fight. Velthos ordered his ships to spread out and search, but every world was the same. Humanity had vanished like smoke in the wind. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Where did they go?" His sensor officers had no answers. The humans had simply disappeared. What Velthos did not know was that humanity had never planned to fight a traditional war. General Amara Diallo commanded the human forces from a mobile station that never stayed in one place for more than a few hours. She watched the Council fleet stumble through empty systems and smiled. "They expected us to meet them head-on," she said to her staff. "They expected us to line up and die like proper soldiers. But we are not proper soldiers. We are survivors." The Bifrost wormhole network allowed humanity to move their entire population in hours. While the Council fleet searched for targets, human strike groups appeared behind their lines. Supply stations exploded without warning. Communication relays went dark. Ships vanished while patrolling what they thought was safe space. The Council could not understand what was happening. They had more ships. They had more soldiers. They had thousands of years of military experience, but they could not fight an enemy they could not find. On the Krithani homeworld, the Empress woke to find human ships in orbit. They did not attack. They simply waited, watching, then disappeared before her fleet could respond. The message was clear. "We can reach you anywhere. You are not safe." The psychological effect was devastating. Council citizens began to panic. How could the mighty Ascended Conclave protect them if humans could appear above their homeworlds at will? Politicians who had supported the war suddenly found themselves facing angry crowds demanding peace. But the Council leadership refused to surrender. They sent more ships. They demanded that their allies commit more resources. The war dragged on for months, then years. Humanity paid a price too. The Dr. Akan warriors died, defending a crucial wormhole gate. Chitin hive ships were destroyed, protecting human transports. Every victory came with loss, and General Diallo felt each death like a wound. "We cannot keep this up forever," Admiral Chenwei warned during a strategy meeting. "Our resources are limited. Eventually, they will corner us." Diallo nodded slowly. "Then we need to end this. Not with weapons, but with truth." The Council was built on lies. The founding species had maintained their power for millions of years by keeping secrets from everyone else. They controlled information. They controlled history. But humanity had spent 50 years gathering intelligence from every corner of the galaxy. They knew about the Krithani genocide 3,000 years ago. They knew about the Valanthi experiments on primitive species. They knew about the secret deals and hidden betrayals that held the Council together. On a single day, humanity released everything. Every secret, every lie, every crime that the Council had hidden for millennia. The information spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. Citizens of Council species learned truths their leaders had kept hidden for generations. The effect was immediate. On a dozen worlds, governments fell. The Krithani Empress was overthrown by her own people when they learned what she had done in their name. The Valanthi Archon faced riots in his own capital, but the final blow came from an unexpected place. The lesser Council species, those who had always been treated as second-class members, saw their chance. They had watched humanity rise from nothing. They had seen what was possible when the oppressed refused to stay oppressed. One by one, they withdrew from the council. Some joined the Forgotten Alliance openly. Others simply refused to fight anymore. The Great Ascended Conclave, which had ruled the galaxy for longer than most species had existed, crumbled from within. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a series of surrenders. The Valanthi asked for peace first, their economy destroyed by the loss of quantum crystal supplies. Others followed quickly. Within months, the fighting was over. General Diallo stood on the bridge of her command ship and watched the last council fleet retreat. Beside her, Admiral Chen Wei let out a long breath. "We won," he said, as if he could not quite believe it. Diallo shook her head. "No, we survived. There is a difference." She turned to face him. "Now comes the harder part. Building something better than what we destroyed." Across the galaxy, humanity celebrated. They had faced the greatest military power in known space and refused to break. They had fought not with cruelty, but with cleverness. They had won not by destroying their enemies but by exposing the truth. But Diallo knew that the real work was just beginning. War was easy compared to peace. Destruction was simple compared to creation. The galaxy was in chaos, and someone needed to bring order. That someone would be humanity. Not as conquerors, but as builders. Not as tyrants, but as equals. The Forgotten Alliance had proven that the discarded could rise. Now they needed to prove that they could lead. 100 years had passed since the day humanity was cast into exile. Now the galaxy gathered on Kepler Prime to witness something no one had thought possible. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked slowly toward the Great Hall. She was 147 years old, kept alive by life extension technology that humans had developed in secret. Her hair was white, her face lined with age, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. She remembered standing before the council a century ago, begging for acceptance. She remembered the contempt in their voices when they rejected her. Today, she would not beg for anything. The hall was filled with representatives from 42 species. Some had been members of the old council. Others had been forgotten and discarded. Just like humanity, they sat together now as equals, waiting to hear what the humans would propose. Elena took her place at the center of the room. The silence was complete. Every eye was on her. 100 years ago, she began, her voice steady despite her age. I stood in a room much like this one. I came to ask for a place in the galactic community. I came with hope in my heart and documents in my hands. I believed that if we showed you our achievements, if we proved our worth, you would accept us. She paused, letting the memory wash over her. You refused. You called us clever beasts. You said we were too young, too violent, too unpredictable. You sent us to the outer rim to die. You gave us barren worlds and empty space, and told us to be grateful. Several of the former council species looked uncomfortable. The Valanthi representative could not meet her eyes. We did not die, Elena continued. We built. We grew. We found others who had been thrown away like garbage, the Chitin, the Moravec, the Doctorakan, and many more. We discovered that the galaxy was full of forgotten peoples, species that the Council had deemed unworthy, civilizations that had been crushed, or ignored, or cast aside. She gestured around the room, and we made them a promise. We promised that if we ever had the power to change things, we would. We promised that no one would ever be judged unworthy again. We promised that everyone would get a chance to prove themselves. End quote. The Chitin Queen clicked her approval. The Moravec sent waves of agreement through the room's communication systems. The Dr. Akan warriors thumped their fists against their chests in salute. Today, we are here to keep that promise. Elena activated a display that showed the structure of the new government. It was called the Galactic Compact. There were no ascended species. There was no hierarchy of worth. Every civilization, from the oldest to the youngest, would have an equal voice. This is not about revenge, Elena said firmly. Many of you expected us to punish those who hurt us, to treat the council species the way they treated us. But that is not who we are. That is not who we want to be. She looked directly at the Volanthi representative. You called us unpredictable. You were right. We are unpredictable. You expected us to hate you forever. Instead, we offer you partnership. You expected us to crush you. Instead, we offer you equality. That is the most human thing we can do. Surprise you by being better than you thought we could be. The treaty was signed that day. 42 species agreed to work together as equals. The old council was dissolved. Its secrets were made public. Its crimes were acknowledged. End all. But there were no mass executions, no ethnic cleansing, no revenge killings. Humanity chose to look forward instead of backward. President Yuki Tanaka addressed the galaxy from the steps of the new Capitol building on Nova Terra. She was the same woman who had cracked the secret of wormhole travel decades ago. Now she led the most powerful civilization in known space. They called the Outer Rim a graveyard, she said. A place for the unwanted. A place for things to be forgotten. But we did not forget. We remembered every insult. We remembered every death. We remembered every time we were told that we were not good enough. She smiled, and there were tears in her eyes. We used those memories as fuel. Every time someone told us we would fail, we worked harder. Every time someone said we were worthless, we proved them wrong. Not because we wanted revenge, because we wanted to show the galaxy what was possible when you refused to give up. Across the Outer Rim, humans watched the broadcast. They stood in cities they had built from nothing. They breathed air they had created on dead worlds. They held hands with Chitin and Moravec and Dr. Akan and dozens of other species who had become family. We are not conquerors, Yuki continued. We are not emperors. We are builders. We are dreamers. We are the people who look at impossible things and ask, why not? We are humanity, and we will never stop reaching for the stars. On a small moon at the edge of human space, an old man watched the broadcast alone. Marcus Stone had retired years ago, but he had lived long enough to see this day. He remembered standing beside Elena Vasquez when she returned from the council's rejection. He remembered the fire in her eyes and the promise in her voice. We did it, he whispered to himself. Outside his window, a human city sparkled with lights. Ships came and went from the spaceport, carrying goods to dozens of different worlds. Children played in parks, never knowing what it felt like to be told they were worthless. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate humanity. Never assume that the weak will stay weak. Never believe that the forgotten will stay forgotten. Because humans do not accept defeat. They adapt. They grow. They survive. And when they are pushed down, they always find a way to rise again. The Outer Rim was no longer a graveyard. It was a cradle, a birthplace for a new kind of galactic civilization, one built not on power and fear, but on hope and cooperation. And at the heart of it all, humanity looked up at the stars and smiled. They had come so far. But this was just the beginning.